Good morning, guys. Hopefully you are doing well this morning after a big Packer victory yesterday. Um, Today we are going to do our first day of development notes. We're going to do some today and some on Monday. So you should see again where it turns red. It should say something like you're at the end of day one. I split it up so that you're not watching a, a super long video here. Okay. So our next unit is all about economic development industry. So we're kind of going to take what we learned with population and apply it to economic development. So how does population add to a country's level of development, right? How does that play a role in how economically superior they are, or whatever it is, okay, what their development is. All right, so what is development? That's our first kind of essential question we're going to answer there. Well, development is the process of improving the material conditions through diffusion of knowledge and technology. All right, so that's a lot of words for a pretty easy definition, okay? The process of improving your conditions through knowledge and technology, right? That's development. As you develop, you improve your conditions somehow. Okay. Hopefully, you learned from that intro activity that we have two types of kind of countries that we will label here during this unit. We have more developed countries, or an MDC, which is a country with higher levels of per capita income, industrialization, and modernization. Okay. Per capita income is just income per person. Per capita means per person. Okay. So higher levels of income per person. And then we have a less developed country, or LDCs, which is a country with low levels of average wealth, industrialization, and modernization, and often high levels of population growth and people employed in agriculture. Okay. That is the difference between more developed and less developed. This is huge. Okay. You need to absolutely know this. A lot of your test questions come from this, so you absolutely need to know what's going on there. Okay. Um, and then an NIC is a newly industrialized country. Obviously, you can probably figure that out. It's newly industrialized, so it's starting to kind of become an industrial power. Okay, what is used to measure development? Okay, what is used to measure development? Well, we call it the Human Development Index. The demographic transition model measured population. The HDI, or Human Development Index, measures development. Okay, and it combines a few different factors there to determine a country's level of development. And as you can see with this kind of map here, the HDI of a country is always under 1. 1 is the highest you can get. So if you see down there at the very bottom, okay, well, now this thing is in the way, but you can kind of see there that the highest is 0.956. And so that's your dark blue countries: United States, Canada, Western Europe, okay? But it combines all of those factors there to give us what level of development a country is. And then we group it into LDC or MDC. Okay, highest possible is 1, as I just said. All right. So what factors are used to calculate HDI? Okay, what factors go into this calculation about how developed a country is? We have some economic factors that go into it, we have some social factors, and then we have some demographic or population factors. Okay. Number one, the economic factors of development are the GNI and the GDP of a country. Okay, so the gross national income, which is just the average income per person in a country. Okay, that goes into how developed you are. If you have a higher GNI, you're going to be a more developed country. If you have a lower GNI, it's going to be a less developed country. You can kind of see here, 30,000 plus is considered an MDC, and then 5,000 or lower is an LDC, which is not a lot for gross national income. And then GDP is just the total value of goods and services produced in a country in a year. And so if that is high, if the total number, that should make some sense, right? If there's more goods and services being made, your country is generally going to be more of an MDC versus an LDC. Okay. Some more economic factors. Okay. Some more economic factors that determine development. The types of jobs that are in your country determine how developed it is. Okay, so we have 3 different types of jobs: primary, secondary, and tertiary. And we'll talk about those, I think, on the next slide. Productivity. How much can your country produce? That kind of goes back with GDP here. Okay, total value of goods and services produced. Productivity. How much can your country produce? The more that you produce, you're more of an MDC. The less, you're more of an LDC. Okay. The amount of consumer goods the country has. Okay, that's very high in MDCs. It's low in LDCs. Same as what I've just been saying, right? The more goods that you have, um, the higher, the more of an MDC you are. The only exception to that is cell phones. Cell phones are in both MDCs and LDCs. It's the only consumer good that we can see in both because of the importance of cell phones and how important it is to be able to communicate with people in other places and things like that. So that's the only one that is prevalent on both in both types of countries. Okay, so I said back here, the type of job determines how developed you are. Okay, so how does that happen? Okay, what people do affects what is produced in their country. Okay, what people do affects what is produced in their country. So we have three different types of jobs. The primary sector jobs, those deal with direct extraction of natural resource from the earth. Okay, that would be like your farmers. Coal miners, those sorts of things, they are directly taking resources from the earth. Secondary sector is dealing with the manufacturing goods from raw materials. So this would be more of your construction workers, auto mechanics, that sort of thing. So they're constructing something from a raw material. And then we have tertiary employees. Those deal with delivery of tangible goods and services, including transportation, communication, and utilities. Okay, so the tertiary sector is everything else. If you're not directly taking resources from the earth or making something from raw materials, you are a tertiary worker. Okay, and each one of those things tells us a little bit different or something different about development for a country. All right, so as you can see here, in the United States, which is considered a more developed country, we have a ton of tertiary sector jobs. Okay, so the more tertiary sector jobs you have, the more of an MDC that you are. There are some secondary and a very low percentage of primary jobs. The higher your primary jobs, the more likely you are to be an LDC. The higher your tertiary jobs, the more likely you are to be an MDC. You can see Brazil's kind of split. That's because they're a little bit in between. They're kind of on the rise towards an MDC, but they're not quite all the way there yet. And Nepal has the highest percentage of primary jobs, which makes them an LDC. Okay, it would be a good idea for you to write down or type down some examples of jobs that fall under the different categories. Okay, so again, for primary sector, I said it's agriculture or farming, fishing, mining, forestry. Okay, for the secondary sector, it's a lot of construction, industries kind of stuff, and then for that tertiary sector, this is where you're working at bank, education, in the healthcare field. So you're a nurse or a doctor. Those are all services. Anything like that. Would be considered tertiary sector. Okay. Access to technology plays a large role in MDC versus LDC. Here is a map of the cellular phones per 10,000 people. Okay. If you notice that the United States is not even the highest number there. Okay. There's other countries with a ton of cell phones, but there's only a few countries that are below 100. Okay, we see somewhere in the multiple hundreds per 1,000 people in all of the different countries. Okay, again, because cell phones are something that everyone uses regardless of development because of its importance to communication with others. Okay, so cell phones again are the one thing that can be seen in both, the one consumer good that can be seen in both MDCs and LDCs. I've said it like 60 times, so you might want to think about that as a test question. All right, what social factors go into development? Well, the average years of schooling, okay, affect the development of your country. The higher that number is, the higher development that you have, right? Again, you got to think about this in terms of, if you go to school more often, does it help you, make more money, and does it help you have a better education, which equals more development? Okay, student to teacher ratio. Okay, it's lower in MDCs, it's higher in LDCs. The literacy rate, the percentage of the people that can read, that tells us something about development. The higher that number is, the more developed your country is. Okay, health and welfare. It's available very cheaply in MDCs. So the lower the cost, the more developed it is. The higher the cost, the less developed it is. Excuse me. Then lastly, the population factors that measure development. Okay, life expectancy. Your life expectancy is higher, you're probably in an MDC. Okay. If it's lower, you're probably in an LDC. There's better medical technology, there's better knowledge in MDCs, therefore people live a little bit longer. Okay, infant mortality rate is higher in LDCs. Okay, higher in LDCs. Less medical technology, more deaths. Natural increase rate, population grows faster in LDCs than it does in MDCs. Okay, right? We talked about where population growth is occurring the most is in sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia, and those places are generally less developed than others. So the higher the population growth, the more of an LDC that it is. Birth rates, again, higher birth rates equal LDCs, lower birth rates equal MDCs. All right. I cannot express enough. Okay. On your test, you are going to be asked higher life expectancy means the country is more of a blank, and you have to decide MDC or LDC. Okay. It's not super hard if you think about it, right? If you think about, okay, life expectancy, that's a good thing. Okay. We want to live longer, and you probably live longer in countries that have more technology and more knowledge. Therefore, it's going to be MDC. Okay. The opposite of that is infant mortality rate. Right? If you have a high infant mortality rate, it means more infants are dying. You probably don't have as much technology or medical knowledge, and so therefore the higher the infant mortality, the more likely it is an LDC. Okay. Here's a map of life expectancy around the world. Okay, obviously you can see anything in green is a pretty good life expectancy, and anything in orange or red is not very good. Okay, and in the places where it's more orange or red, again, you can tell that those are less developed countries from what we talked about with population. Okay, that's all for day one. All right, now you got one more activity to do on Schoology, and then you're good for today. Okay, let me know if you have questions. Otherwise, have a great weekend.